Welcome back to Z-Speed and thanks for tuning back in. Today we'll be showing you a step-by-step guide on how to replace your battery in your 10th Gen Civic. We'll also show you the proper battery reset procedure at the end of the video. So if you're interested in learning how to do all this, just stay tuned. So we're replacing this battery today because after you let this car sit for a couple days, it doesn't have enough power to actually start the engine, so you need to replace it before it completely fails. So you can see I don't have enough power to actually start it, but it does have enough power to, fire up all the electronics. So I'm going to turn it off. And we're going to go ahead and use this little jumper that I bought. I think it might be handy for you. So I'm going to use a AutoWit supercapacitor jump starter to start my car. This is unlike a traditional battery pack because it uses capacitors to utilize whatever existing electricity is left in your battery to start your car. You can see it's very tiny and super easy to use. All the inputs and outputs are in this little small area right here. And this thing isn't much bigger than my hand, so it's very convenient to carry in the trunk of your car. These things last for about 10 years and they're ready to use at a moment's notice. You can see I've got these two clamps that plug into that hooks up to your battery, and if your battery is completely clapped out and useless, we can charge it in about 3 minutes with a good battery from another car, and then you can go ahead and jump start a completely dead battery that way. You can also use a USB port. That takes a little bit longer. I'm not sponsored by these guys, but I've used this thing a couple times and it's really awesome. Much easier than traditional jumper cables. I'll leave a link below for you. Okay, first we're going to connect the red jumper cable to the battery, then the negative jumper cable to the battery in that order. And once you get these two connected, then we're going to plug this part right here into the little unit itself. You can see I've only got 7.8 volts and it's at 65%. So once it gets to 100% charged, the little capacitor will make a little noise and let you know. It'll make a beep, and then we're going to depress this little red button right here. Once you depress that, it gives you a 10-second countdown, and then you're ready to start the vehicle. Okay, it's let me go ahead and start it now. Here we go. Wow, okay, it worked. Okay, now that you've got your vehicle repositioned in a good spot with plenty of light, let's go ahead and open the hood and go over briefly what the plan of attack is. And also, there's a couple different places you can place your hood stand on the Civic. Let's go all the way up. There's two spots. You want this thing as far up as possible so you'll have easy access to the battery. Now, as far as battery location goes, Honda was really nice to us. It made it super simple to access, no weird plastic panels hiding the battery. Now, it takes 4 10mm nuts to release, one on the positive, one on the negative cable, and then one right here on this post, and one down here underneath this plastic grommet that's kind of covering it up. We'll get to that in a minute. 4 nuts removed, the whole battery comes out, piece of cake. We have a little sheath around here, like a cloth sheath that will remove with the battery, clean it and reuse it with the new battery. Now, as far as this battery goes, this is a cheap interstate battery that somebody's placed in here. It's a 24-month battery. I've decided to replace it with a OEM Honda battery, which is a 100-month battery. It should last for quite a long time here. It's about $195 from Honda. They said the die-hard batteries work really well on the Honda platform as well, so you might want to check that out. If you want something cheaper, you can shop around online. Now let's start off by removing the negative battery cable first. That's the safest way to go. And what we're going to do is grab our 10mm socket and just give it a few twists, and this thing will come right off. It's not on there with a lot of force, so it's easy to remove. Now once you pull this battery cable off, you kind of want to wrap that or keep it from touching anything metal, because it could arc or spark. You don't want that. I'll usually grab like a glove or something or a rag and place it around there, at least until we get the positive side of the battery cable off, and then we don't have to worry about any arcing or anything weird like that. So I'm going to throw this little glove over it and tuck it down by this fuse box, and that'll keep it from flopping around the engine bay and touching something metal. Now it's safe. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this red covering here, and you don't want to lift up this way. That's the improper way. This is the proper way to open this flap right here. And now you have easy access to this 10mm nut right here. Same thing with this nut. It's easy to loosen up. It's not held on by a lot of force. Once you remove this thing's kind of short and rigid, so it kind of wants to go back into place. So you may have to kind of stretch it and flex it a little bit before it'll stay out of your way. But it will after you play with it for a second, and it'll stay out of your way. And now we can go ahead and start working on the battery clamp down bolts here. You'll need an extended 10mm socket here to make this easy, or you can use an open end wrench here, whichever you have available. We don't have to completely remove these two nuts to get these posts loose. You just have to get the bolts a little bit loose so we're able to move around these two metal posts a little bit easier. So spin these nuts off about halfway, or get them till they're getting kind of loose here. And once you get it fairly loose, you're able to push down on the little metal rods and disconnect them from the plastic housing down below, and it'll just slide right off. So it's pretty easy once you get it loose. You can see I've got that one loose. That's the longer one's on the passenger side, and the short side goes to the driver's side, so you can remember it that way. But these pop right out, and we can get this out of our way. And now we can lift the battery out with two hands. It's not a very large battery, so two-handed grip on this thing, and it comes right out. Now this actual plastic housing is not attached with anything. It's just sitting in there loose, so it just comes right out with the battery. Pretty simple to remove all this. Okay, now that we've got this battery containment case out of the vehicle, let's knock all the debris out and clean it all up. Let's spray it down with 303 aerospace protectant and make it look brand new. That is my number one question that people ask me on most of my videos is, how on earth do you keep your engine bay looking so new and clean? And I always tell them the same thing. It's no trick at all. I just spray down the area with 303 aerospace protectant, wipe it down, and it comes out looking like, right off the factory floor. You can see this thing looks like it's brand new now. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease, and I did the same with the engine bay. Now that compartment was out of the engine bay, I sprayed this whole area down, wiped it all up, and sooner or later, every time you replace a part or you add an aftermarket part, if you clean the area you're working in, your engine bay ends up looking like this, clean and pristine. So now it's time to place this battery containment case back into the vehicle. It's just going to sit down into the metal tray down in there. It doesn't really click into anything. It's held in by those two clamps. The metal heat shield goes towards the passenger side, and this open end side right here, this open side goes towards the driver's side. So the heat shield keeps the engine bay heat from, heating up the battery, and the open side goes towards that strut tower there. So it just sits down in there. Make sure that it's level and not moving around. Okay, now we're going to remove this battery box insulator sheath from the old battery, clean it up with some 303 and a rag, and then place it onto the new battery. It wasn't too hard to take apart. It's just two little points of attachment, and it comes apart and lays out flat like that. You can wipe it down. It's kind of made like of a cardboard / plastic and cloth material. It's basically just an insulator to keep the battery from rattling around inside plastic battery case, and also obviously probably give some thermal protection as well. So this wasn't too hard to take apart and clean, and it does matter how it goes back on the battery. I'm going to show you that in 1 second, but it just slides right over the battery, and then the battery and the sheath slide into the plastic battery case. So here is the battery case right here, and then here is the sheath. You can see that cutout goes towards the bottom, and it's facing the metal side of the heat shield. So that's how it goes back in. And I've removed the whole battery box back out of the engine bay. I'm just going to go ahead and assemble everything outside the engine bay and try to drop it in that way. You can put it back in however you want. You can do it the way we did when we took it out of the engine bay, or you can try it this way. I think either way is fine. It wasn't very hard to get this whole setup back in there. Once I put it all together outside the engine bay, it wasn't too bad at all. It slid right in there. So you just want to make sure that it seats properly and does not move around once it's seated into that little metal bracket down there. So now you can see it's seated correctly. It's not going to move. And now we can put the metal brace across the top of the battery. Before we hook the battery up, in case you're wondering more about the OEM battery, it's a 500cca 85RC, and it's group size 51R, which basically means that the battery poles are reversed. To get it into this vehicle, the battery poles have to be on the opposite side. So this is positive and this is negative. Normally it's the other way around, I'm assuming. And this is what it takes to get into a Honda Civic. Now, this is also a 100-month battery, which comes out to 8 years. I don't know if it'll last 8 years. I doubt it, but they're saying that's a 100-month battery, so we'll see about that. Okay, now it's time to reconnect the battery cables back to the battery terminals, and we're going to remove the protective sheath, and I'm also going to use some anti-corrosive spray. I like NoCo, but there's several different brands. I'll link this down below, and I'll link everything that I've used in the video down below. But this stuff's worked really well for me in the past. I've used it on my 350Z. I've had no corrosion issues at all. Basically, it comes with 2 felt donuts and the anti-corrosive spray. You take the felt donut and place it around the clean battery terminal right here. I'm going to place it around the positive one first, because we're going to reconnect the positive first, and then you're going to place it around the negative side. So I've got my donut around there. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the cable down over the donut and the post. Make sure it's seated nice and flat, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten it up with our 10mm socket wrench here. So basically, when you're tightening this, you just want to snug it up nice and tight. You don't want to be able to rotate this battery cable at all. So you kind of pull on it, make sure it's not going to move at all. Then you know you're tight enough. It's not super tight, but it's nice and snug. If you tighten it too much, you're going to strip it. So be careful with this part. But once it's snug enough, you'll know, because it won't move and it won't slide on the battery terminal itself. So now I've got the positive completely tightened down. We're going to go ahead and do the same exact thing with the negative battery cable over here. And I've already put the donut down first. So we're just going to tighten it all up. And now that it's tightened down and it's not moving at all, we're going to go ahead and place the anti-corrosive spray down around the clamp itself and over the battery post. It doesn't take a lot of the spray. Go easy. You don't want to get it all over your engine bay. Just spray enough to coat the top of the post and the clamp that goes around it. And that's all it takes to protect your battery terminals. Okay, last but not least, it's time to reattach the battery hold-down bracket, and it's not too difficult. Just trying to figure out where the 2 metal posts go was a little tricky, but first thing you want to do is make sure you got the top of the brace on the top of the battery correctly. It only goes one way. You want to make sure it's sitting flat and level. Once you get the top of this metal bracket situated on the battery correctly, then we can go about attaching the 2 metal little bars on the sides of the battery area. So once I got that nice and flat and stable, now I'm going to show you exactly where the longer bar goes first. We're going to start with this long one. You can see right down here is where it attaches into the aluminum part of this little frame here. So it's not too difficult. You can see it clearly right there where it attaches this. Once you get it in there, tighten it up by hand, then we'll come back and tighten it with the ratchet in a second. And then the shorter side goes right here in this elongated hole. See the short little small hole right there? There's a larger hole below that. So that's the larger hole, is the one that the little metal bracket goes into, not that little small one, but the larger elongated one. Once you get it seated in there, you can hand tighten that one. Then we're going to go back up top with your 10 mil ratchet and just tighten it down till it gets to the point where the battery is nice and stable and does not move at all. Once you've got it, nicely snugged up, then you're good to go. Then you know that your battery's stable and not going to move anywhere. Okay, once you start the car back up, we do have a reset procedure that needs to be done. It's very simple, don't worry, it's really easy. But this is what's going to happen, or what you're going to see on your dashboard after you start your car initially. You're going to see a bunch of lights. You're going to see all kinds of lights on the dashboard. You can see this kind of like lit up like a Christmas tree. And your stock radio may not work. I'm not sure. I have an aftermarket radio, so mine is actually working. But if you have the stock radio, I think it may be in op until you do the reset procedure here, which is super simple. Basically, you just get in and you drive the car up to about 15 miles an hour. Once it hits right around 15 miles an hour, it's going to reset automatically by itself. So it's quite simple, easy to do. And don't let all these lights freak you out, and don't let your stereo freak you out. If it's not working, it's all going to work. So, we got back on the road here, and you can see as I'm driving right at 50 miles an hour, bingo, everything resets. Your radio should work if you're using the stock radio. And now everything is complete. The battery reset is done, and you've got a brand new battery. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, don't forget to give me a big old fat thumbs up, because that really helps the channel out. And until next time, you know what to do. Just keep on repairing.